Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Naruto world. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Reborn in Highschool DxD is a Lucifuge and What If a Venerated Soul Reincarnated in Danmachi world will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if Reincarnated in Bleach as Toshiro Hitsugaya? What if hosting Q&A in One Piece world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which two stories you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 77. He was so exhausted after putting his plan into motion that Daiki honestly decided for once he really did need to sleep. 2 nights in a row thanks to that, a new personal record, at least in the last few months. And a full 8 hours at that. Some might have found it foolish to do so, considering he had 3 former bodyguards of Orochimaru in his home. But that was a moot point. For one, they were terrified of his strength. Secondly, he annoyingly had a full guard detail of top-tier Umbu standing guard around his bedroom when he returned home. And not just them, but Danzo had apparently assigned route as well, because there were 4 teams of route placed around his home. But beyond all that, Isabu would never allow anyone to attack him in his sleep without alerting him. And, to top it off, his entire home was filled with seals that would activate should anyone ever attack him within it. I needed that. Daiki yawned, fist over his mouth as he rolled out of bed, clad in nothing at all. He idly scratched his balls with his other hand, before making his way over to the mirror. Now that he was up, there was a few things he wanted to check. The first being his eyes. He hadn't got a chance to look at what they looked like now. He pumped chakra into his eyes, blue swirling into scarlet red, spinning Tomo appearing, before they converged together into a familiar 4-pointed hollow black shuriken. It looked entirely the same as before, except for one thing: in the middle of the 4-pointed shuriken where his pupils were located, there were now black rings around each. Spoiler. A very subtle change all things considered, but a lot of the time, less was more. He liked it. Which reminded him, my clones have been busy for sure, he noted, lips quirking. They'd foregone the usual training, to focus entirely upon the special Manjikyu techniques he'd inherited from that bald loser after integrating his Sharingan and obtaining the eternal Manjikyu. It had only been 8 hours. But there were 400 clones training. That made 3,200 hours. And over 100 days. More than enough time to gain full control of them. And what interesting techniques they were. The first, the lesser of the two. Not that was saying much, and the ability of his left eye was a brand of telekinesis. He could mark anything he touched with his chakra and brand it with a mark. The control of it was absurd, he could probably outright perform surgery on himself with it, that was how great it was. But beyond that, was the sheer simplicity of the technique. More chakra equaled bigger and heavier target that could be controlled. Which explained why that Shin freak could so easily toss a freaking mountain at him. With enough chakra, he could probably lift the entire land of fire into the air or something. The other technique, he mostly knew thanks to Orochimaru explaining it, and was the easier of the two to get down. A space-time barrier that teleported anything within its range to anywhere the user had been to before. But that was simplifying it too much. It could cover a range of 50 feet long and 50 feet wide. Already, that was incredibly powerful, but on top of that, it could be shaped as he pleased. Whether that was in the form of a shield, a box, a sphere, or even rope, tentacles, whatever he imagined he could shape it as. It was an incredibly overpowered technique, and completely wasted on that fool Shin. And to make it even better, it was connected to a personal dimension belonging to the user. This'll be incredibly useful. Daiki thought with a smirk. He could literally teleport to anywhere he'd been before. Like say, to the mist without anyone the wiser. Or the land of rivers to go searching for some very specific things with nobody the wiser. It was perfect for a guy like him, who would now be under constant scrutiny and public attention as the Hokage. Which reminded him, the old man claimed it would be best to push his inauguration through quickly. That would be happening in the afternoon today. And he'd need to give a speech, lovely. Now then, he said to himself, letting his Jujutsu fade away and then, simply commanding, status. After what he did last night, there was no way his chakra capacity didn't spike massively. He drained himself to the very limit, and channeled enough power to match the sand by himself, if not more in a single technique. Name, Daiki Uriai. Age, 13. Chakra capacity, 545-814/545-814, Elite Tier Kage. Strength, 370/. Endurance, 422/. Durability, 401/. Agility, 375/. Taijutsu, 307/500. Ninjutsu, 463/500. Genjutsu, 202/500. Bokijutsu, 223/500. Chakra control, 407/500. Chakra affinities. Lightning, master the heaven's spark. Water, master the sea parts before you. Wind, master the gale bows. Earth, master the earth shakes. Fire, master the flames of creation, blaze. Yin-yang, adept the throne of heaven lies empty. Fuinjutsu, expert the breath hitches. For a moment, Daiki just stared at his status screen, taking in the ridiculous jump he'd gone through since yesterday. Hell, even just since last night. Wait, my physical stats are a little higher than last night as well, he noted. It'll be because of your yang conversion seal. The sheer amount of chakra you obtained was enough to boost your physical abilities slightly just from that outright, Aisabu suddenly spoke up. For the first time since he'd left the seal to give him privacy, this is impressive growth. No, impressive is underselling it. I was honestly skeptical of your plan with Izanagi, but, I do admit, I am impressed, Daiki. You stepped onto the same stage as father, even if for only a brief moment. Do you understand, Daiki? For that split moment, you were on the stage of a god. His lips quirked, and he was silent for a moment, basking in the praise proudly. Before he responded, is that really so surprising? He replied, how could a mere god compare to the Hokage? Surprisingly, Aisabu chuckled. Yes, how silly of me, he replied, though, I'll say this, you are not the only one who has gone through substantial growth. My power is now a match for my brother, Kokuo. Kokuo, as in the Five Tails? Daiki grinned. That was a massive amount of growth indeed. Now we just need to get our hands on the Stone of Jello mine, the Dragon Vein and the Spear of Heaven for you, he replied eagerly. And of course some minor other things they could put to use, like Kurama's chakra contained within that Sora guy. I suppose, Aisabu mused, it's quite a bit, and of course I've known about the plan, but I didn't quite expect things to proceed this fast. Neither did Daiki. He hadn't expected Orochimaru to literally gift them a walking loot box of bijou chakra for Aisabu to absorb, and a fully wrapped Christmas present full of Sharingan eyes. Speaking of, I should name those new techniques, he mused. After all, he had no knowledge of those techniques being used in the other timeline and Shin definitely hadn't named them. So dibs. Well, this should be good, especially considering all the Sharingan techniques are named after divinity. Aisabu snorted. They were indeed, weren't they? Well, in that case. Kishinryo, he decided for the space-time barrier technique. That was a fitting name indeed, and far better than any of the other Sharingan jutsu names. Domain of the Turtle God. Or to be perfectly exact, the sacred territory of the Turtle God who governs space and eternity. This is acceptable. Aisabu chipped in happily, and as for the other one, how about Kagetsushin, he offered. Divine Puppeteer? Yeah, that worked. Just then, there was a knock at his bedroom door. Hokage-sama, a male voice called for him. One of the Umbu then. Yes? Daiki asked without turning around, instead stretching his arms out over his head. Time for a good shower, and I should make more shadow clones. With this amount of chakra, I should be able to use another 300 for training easily enough, he mused. Which would bring the total clones he had training up to 700. Your maid wishes to talk to you, the Umbu stated. Daiki rolled his eyes, then let her in, he said. That was going to get annoying fast for sure, if people couldn't even enter a room with him in it without the Umbu screening them. A moment later the door opened and Tayuya stormed in. Hey shithead Hokage, she cussed him out as soon as she was allowed in, the door slamming shut behind her. What the hell is with this unif dash? Her words died in her throat and her jaw dropped, eyes widening in disbelief and cheeks flushing as he turned towards her, her eyes dropping immediately to the manhood swinging between his legs. What in the fuck is that? The redhead sputtered. My dick, what else? Daiki smirked at her, looking her up and down. He was ever so glad he gave Yugo a special mission to go pick up uniforms for his new household staff. A skimpy-made uniform if there ever was one. A tight black corset strapless, trimmed white with lacing up the front showing off a lovely deep canyon of cleavage, bicep-length black gloves with white frills at the top. A mid-thigh-length pleated skirt with a white apron at the front, leading down to lacy black thigh-highs and garter showing off the greatest of full-tone absolute territory that was her thighs. Did you have to get one so skimpy for me? The redhead growled, pulling her eyes away from his manhood. Those other two fuckheads are just in normal stupid-looking butler outfits, while I'm stuck in this fetish get-up. Yes. Daiki gave her a shit-eating smirk. She huffed in annoyance, eyes roaming over his chest and abs, before dipping down between his legs again. Before catching herself and immediately dragging her eyes back up to his. The fuck are you just standing around for with your cock out? She growled to cover her embarrassment. I sleep naked, Daiki shrugged, before raising a brow. Anyway, is that all? I'm going for a shower, so unless you want to join me. Tayuya looked back at him, eyes dipping once more, before scoffing. You kidding? I actually want to be able to walk for the next week, she shot back. That ain't in a maid's job description, and I've got cleaning and food to make for fuck's sake. Shoulda went with concubine if you wanted me in the shower with you. His smirk widened and he walked over towards her, watching her stiffen in amusement, unwittingly licking her lips and backing up until her back was against the wall. Is that an offer then? Daiki placed his hand on the wall beside her head and loomed in close, eyes locked with hers. You'd rather just jump into the fun stuff with me, rather than clean and cook and other maid crap? Her cheeks outright burned red. Didn't we already cover that last night? Fuck being a maid. Tayuya rolled her eyes. Oh, she was actually serious? You look good in that outfit though, he pointed out. Course I fucking do, I'm hot as fuck, Tayuya scoffed. You want me in a skimpy fucking outfit, just say so, no need to make me a useless pain in the ass maid. Well, there was always Kin if he wanted a maid from Sound, and he was the Hokage now. Thoughts for later. Alright then, Daiki shrugged, concubine it is. Though, the actual reason he wanted her would have to wait a few years at least. He had no interest in being a father as he was currently. She grinned, seriously? Shit yes, she pumped her fist. He was actually surprised. You're oddly excited about being a concubine. Daiki said, raising a brow in amusement. Course I fucking am. Who the fuck wants to be a maid? Way better to be the concubine of an utterly absurdly overpowered motherfucker like you, Tayuya grinned, and reaching down and boldly grabbed his cock, or tried at least. Her fingers couldn't wrap around it at all. What the fuck man, you could club a jonin to death with this fucking thing. She hefted it in her palm, testing the sheer way, and guffawing. Shit, forget a week, I won't be able to walk straight for a month. The redhead's grin widened. So, we gonna then? Tempting, Daiki reached up with his other hand and grasped her chin. I've got shit to do though, I'm a busy man being the Hokage and all, he said, before kissing her. That didn't mean he couldn't have a little taste though. He wasn't actually lying to Tayuya either. Sure, he had a bunch of clones that could run around and do a lot of jobs for him. But for some, a personal touch was needed. Which was why he found himself arriving at one of the top-class hotels of the Leave Village, and knocking on the room door of a very specific set of guests. The door opened a moment later, to reveal a tall, tan man with a white turban. You. Baki stiffened. Hi there, Daiki grinned at him, Can Gaara come out to play? Baki swallowed heavily. May I ask why you wish to speak to Gaara, Hokage Dano? Above your pay grade, Daiki happily informed him, but it's just a friendly visit. After all, he is one of my brethren, isn't he? He mused, pulling on Isabu's chakra and watching as Baki stepped back in fear as the whites of his eyes rippled into purple. Ah, yes, that is right. Baki clasped his hands together behind his back. Just a moment then, Hokage Dano, I will get him for free. There is no need, I'm already here, the gravelly voice of Gaara spoke up behind him, and Baki's shoulders slumped in defeat as the redhead walked past him. Surprisingly flanked by Temari. No Kankuro? Daiki raised a brow. No. Temari was the one to reply, giving him a serious look. What do you want with Gaara? Well, that was going to be a private discussion, but I suppose you'd find out anyway. Daiki shrugged. Let's go to the roof, he said, cutting off the flow of Isabu's chakra. Baki actually slumped in relief. Daiki resisted the urge to laugh. He led them up to the roof, brushing his hand over the doorway as he stepped out, a seal flaring into existence briefly around them. Sealing the sound coming from the rooftop itself, making sure they couldn't be overheard. Did you just apply a seal by casually touching the wall? Temari outright gaped at him, while one Gaara's non-existent eyebrow rose when he turned to face them. Yeah, I'm pretty good with them, Daiki boasted as he walked over to a bench atop the roof, giving a great view of the Hokage monument and the village as a whole. There was a lovely garden terrace atop the roof, with a small pond and everything. A great place to chill and relax. The kind of place that people would love to have their breakfast at in the morning, and be provided a glorious view of the splendor of the Leaf Village. He slouched onto the bench, both arms going over the back of it, and brought his left foot up over his right knee as he gave them a lazy half-lidded gaze. Not that I need to remind you of that, he said. You saw firsthand how good I am with seals when I dealt with Orochimaru's little pet cloud monkey zombie. Temari grimaced, visibly stiffening. Gaara however just nodded. Indeed, I can see now how you managed to become a Jinchuriki on your own merit, he said. I did not think it was possible to apply a seal without it being inked down on a conduit. You can create them from your mere chakra. So can you? Daiki shrugged, making Gaara blink and give him a confused look. Yeah, that tracks. You barely know jack shit about being a Jinchuriki because of that clown Raza. Well, here's a spoiler. Shikaku, he has those blue markings over his body, right? Yes. Gaara nodded again, simply. Those aren't decoration, Daiki revealed, they're cursed seal markings. Shikaku can imbue them into his sand and some other techniques, and are pretty powerful binding seals. Even a Kage would be rendered useless without a counter to them if you caught them in a bunch of those seals. Considering when Naruto used them, they had been strong enough to bind 6 Paths Madara's limbo clones, and even the real one would rather escape than get stuck in Shikaku's binding seal markings. Well, that was as glowing a recommendation as one could ever want. He honestly couldn't wait until they'd accumulated enough of Shikaku's chakra in his seal to allow Isabu to gain Shikaku's abilities as well. Once he had access to those, and combined them with his own sealing techniques, he may even be capable of crafting a seal that could contain Kagaya. None of that sun and moon marking seal crap needed. I see. Gaara hummed, before scoffing, as expected of that fool of a Kazekage. He wished for me to become his weapon, and yet explained nothing. Gaara, he's still our father, you know. Temari half-hearted said, timidly. Honestly, Daiki didn't like it. He much preferred that fiery Temari that came and confronted him and threatened him. Was your father, he decided to correct her, or well, still is I suppose. I can let you speak to him if you want. What? Temari goggled at him. He's dead though. Gaara's eyes narrowed, mind churning at his words. Ah, I see, he grunted. You know that jutsu as well, don't you? The one Orochimaru used to bring that other Jinchuriki, Fukai, back from the dead. That made Temari's eyes widen. Really? It makes sense, Gaara noted. Daiki here did not seem at all surprised by that jutsu during their battle. In fact, his immediate go-to was to seal the Edo Tensei. He did not resort to that for any of the others, just him. Which means, he already knew how to counter it from the start, and what better way to know how to counter a technique than to know it? Correctamundo, Daiki laughed, snapping his fingers in the redhead's directions. In fact, I've already brought your father back as an Edo Tensei. What? Temari gave him a look of utter disbelief. Why? Daiki just laughed even more, because that clown has a debt to pay, he said, cutting off his laughter and focusing his gaze on the older girl. Temari, I like you. You're hot, intelligent, skilled, and you're a good sister to your brothers, a complete 17 out of 10. But don't make mistake my mercy in letting you live as kindness. She licked her lips. What do you mean? He means, the only reason he didn't kill us, is because I already told him before things kicked off, that we would have no part in it, and I would keep you and Kankuro from it as well, Gaara answered for Daiki, crossing his arms. Punishment, is it not? Yes, Daiki shrugged. Raza might have been tricked into an alliance with Orochimaru, and desperate, but that doesn't change he was willingly wanting to destroy my village, my people. Simple death is too good for him. But not even death can let you escape me. So now, he'll serve Konoha as a loyal puppet, for at least the next 100 years. Ironic. Gaara snorted. That's... Temari clenched her fists. Evil? Daiki supplied for her. Yes, evil is a good word for it, she sighed, shoulders slumping and defeated, and he watched a storm of emotions play across her face, before she gave him a bitter smile. So, is that what you wanted? To rub it in our faces? To show off what you've done to the Kazekage? Daiki snorted. Hell no, Raza is far from that important. I told you once before, didn't I? He's a clown, he replied, and speaking of his clownery. With him gone, and him having the next strongest person in Suna killed off so she couldn't be considered a candidate as the next Kazekage, that leaves the only one with the potential in your entire village to fill that role. He let his words hang in the air, as he directed his eyes to Gaara. Gaara blinked slowly. I will not become Kazekage. Why would I? The redhead retorted. What has that useless village ever done for me? Not that he could, the advisory council filled with some of our top ninja would never allow it. Temari shook her head. Their compliance is not a factor, a Kage is an absolute ruler, Daiki scoffed, before grinning. Well, not that it matters, even if you did Gaara, Suna is destined to fall. Not even you could protect them, not with what's coming. What do you mean, destined to fail? A bit of fiery self burst back into existence as Temari huffed, scowling at him. You've lost your Kazekage, Daiki pointed out. Your village is massively poor and was only keeping somewhat stable thanks to Raza's gold dust. I'll give him this, clown he is, but he was somewhat capable when it came to securing money. And then, to top it off, how many ninja did you lose in that silly little invasion plan? Over 500, Temari bit out. 500 that you killed, she added pointedly, as if that meant anything. Though she was wrong, he didn't kill all of them. There were a few currently imprisoned being watched by his clones in his personal dimension. He'd specifically left a few alive to use for his purposes. 500 that I killed, Daiki agreed proudly, not at all ashamed or feeling bad about slaughtering them, over 1,000 actually if you count all those filthy mongrels from Odo. Quite a lot to lose when your overall total forces were at around 15 to 20,000 at most, especially when they'd committed a large portion of their jonin, easily 100 of them and the rest all chunin, not a single genin. His kill count was approaching nearly 1,500 now thanks to the invasion. Who cares how many he killed? Gaara shrugged. What I want to know is what you mean by what is coming. Perfect. There's a group called the Akatsuki, filled with S-rank shinobi like Itachi Uchiha, Sasori of the Red and other big wigs. Every single one of them, far stronger than your father, Daiki told them, embellishing a bit, because well, Haiden and all, they're hunting the Bijou, and by proxy the Jinchuriki. And they need to do so in order for a convoluted plan of theirs. Which means, you will be their first target. Sasori. Temari's jaw dropped as she gasped. Why do they want the Bijou? Above your pay grade babe, they just do, Daiki winked at her, before turning his attention back to Gaara. Right now, you aren't strong enough to beat any of them, save maybe one of them. But they work in a group. Gaara's brows furrowed. I will die if I face them as I am you mean, he noted, however, that does not explain what you mean by Suna will ball. I care little mind you, but it still does not make sense. Like I said, Suna lacks in everything right now. Funds, manpower and even Kage, Daiki repeated, and since the Akatsuki will focus on you, you couldn't fill the spot, not that you want to. Which means, there is little Suna can do to stop those filthy grasping thieving mongrels from IWA from invading and taking whatever they want. He took his eyes off of Gaara, knowing he didn't need to convince him now, but rather, met the eyes of his sister. After all, you don't have an alliance with Konoha anymore, now do you? And why does that matter? What did our alliance with Konoha ever bring us? Temari shot back defiantly, even though she should already know, except less recognition for our efforts, and becoming poorer and poorer when our own daimyo would rather go to Konoha for missions. Our strength, the exact reason why your daimyo prefers us, Daiki countered smugly. Suna has always been the weakest of the 5 great villages. From the very beginning, you've always struggled. And you use it as a source of pride, going on about how not being as rich and powerful as us in Konoha makes you stronger because of your hardship and blah blah blah, when in reality, it's just an excuse to hide your own pathetic weakness. Temari reared back as if he struck her, just excuses made by the losers to feel better while the winners live better, Daiki continued, and it's come full circle. From the stupidity of your Shodai Kazekage, now to the stupidity of your Yandame Kazekage. Suna is destined to fall. He stood as he said that and looked Temari in the eye. However, just because the name Suna will fall, doesn't mean you, your people and your culture have to fall with it. Chapter 78. A silence hung in the air for a few moments after Daiki's last statement. Temari would not be Temari, however, without her pride, and she was quick to retort, "Where do you get off acting so arrogant? Who cares how strong you are? Who cares if you're freaking Hokage at your age? Who cares even if you're a Jinchuriki?" She fired back, and jabbed a finger into his chest, all the trepidation and fear she'd had holding her back, evaporating in the flames of righteous anger over her village and people being insulted. How can you be so sure? How can you be so sure in your knowledge and predicting the future that IWA will go after us? Because they always pick on the weak like vultures. Anyone who has studied the history of the 5 great villages knows that, and you do too. You're far too intelligent not to realize it, you're just being stubborn. Daiki shrugged it off easily, and placed a finger under her chin, tilting her head up. IWA will covet all your village's secret techniques, and they're right next to you. And they won't be the only ones. Kumo might be further away, but they're always hungry to get their hands on bloodline users. Heck, they'll target you specifically. Your family has the magnet-style bloodline. It's skipped a generation in you, but the potential is there in your blood. They'll grab you up as breeding stock. And then there's your village's scorch style and a bunch others. Temari growled, but there was nothing she could say in face to that. Gaara, however, was far less emotional over it. "You wish Suna to relinquish its title as one of the 5 great villages and become a vassal of Konoha," he stated. Daiki grinned, turning away from Temari and walking over to the redhead. "Close, buddy, close," he said, making the redhead blink. Then his eyes widened when Daiki casually swung an arm over his shoulder, and his sand did not twitch at all. He actually looked quite perplexed. The poor guy didn't know anything about his automatic defense either, and still thought it was Shikaku. "I want you to become part of Konoha." Part of Konoha? Gaara's non-existent eyebrows knit together, as he repeated his words, looking confused. "How the hell could we become part of Konoha?" Temari huffed, "You just said that the name might disappear, but our village didn't need to. We'd have to move here to Konoha for that. So you make no sense." "Not quite," Daiki pointed a finger at her. "I'm going to annex the Land of Wind. And the Land of Rivers." Once more he was treated to Temari gaping at him, jaw-dropping in disbelief. "You're insane, you really are," she sputtered. "Why would you want that?" "I can see why you'd want the Land of Rivers. It's small but it's full of life, nothing at all like the Land of Wind. Which is a complete inhospitable desert wasteland for the most part, and beyond that, it's even bigger than the Land of Fire. The Land of Wind is the biggest patch of land on the continent." Which was exactly why he wanted it. He let go of Gaara and spread his arms wide, grandly. "Not for long," Daiki replied. "Would you like to see it? The Land of Wind, as a land as prosperous as the Land of Fire? Grassland, trees, oasis, forests, farmland as far as your eye can see. Great rushing rivers of clean pure water. Vegetation and fruits, and wildlife by the bucket loads that will mean none of your people will ever go poor or hungry again? Of course I want to see that." Temari shook her head, "but it's impossible. You'd need to be a god to create a miracle like that. Daiki scoffed, I'm far above some paltry god. He crushed that thought instantly. I'm the Hokage, and nothing is impossible for me. Do you really believe in your own hype that much? Temari goggled at him. It's not hype, it's just reality, he smirked, but I'm not actually insane or just boasting out of my ass here. Soon, I really will be capable of altering the land of wind into a prosperous land, just like the land of fire, though granted it'll take a few months at the very least once I get started. It wouldn't be long now after all, until he obtained Hashirama's cells. And through that, he would obtain the wood style. And beyond that, there was more to why he wanted to use his Enaji to learn how to create the truth-seeking ball. Truth-seeking balls were the perfect combination and ratio of all 5 elemental styles and the yin-yang style. He had obtained perfect knowledge on the exact ratio of how the 5 elements mixed together. Which meant he had the knowledge on ratio of the elemental chakra needed to form the sub-elements as well. Ice style, scorch style, lava style, boil style, crystal style, swift style, particle style, mud style, and more. But more specifically, the storm style. Which would in time allow him to alter the very weather itself. While the wood style would allow him to alter the very land itself. With his clones, Isabu's chakra amplifying him, and now the ability to teleport to anywhere he had been before as he pleased. Altering the climate and shape of a country was well within his grasp. I just lacked the actual bloodlines for those sub-elements, he mused. But, well, wasn't it lucky for him? He had a set of armor that could imitate such a bloodline with chakra metal in regards to the ice style, and gave him the perfect ratio of chakra metal needed to be used to do so? You? Temari's mouth opened and closed, before she swallowed deeply and licked her dry lips. Is that really possible? It is for me. Daiki confirmed. It is quite the claim, I do admit, Gaara said then, seeing your confidence in your ability, I will not doubt it. The question is, however, why bring this up with us? Because I want you to get through to your village top brass, Daiki replied simply. This will happen whether they like it or not, but I'd prefer to do so with as few casualties as possible and resentment. I'd prefer not to have to wipe out most of your ninja. You say that so casually, Temari noted, despite wanting them to become part of Konoha, as if their lives have no meaning to you. Should they? Daiki raised a brow at her. Currently, I'll repeat. You are not allied with Konoha. And you are not part of Konoha. The lives of my enemies mean nothing to me. There will be no alliance again where you can so easily turn on Konoha again. You've proven a simple alliance cannot be trusted. So you either become Konoha, or you become dust in the wind. That's not an offer, it's an ultimatum. Temari sighed in defeat. It's really not. I'm offering you your lives and future prosperity in return for you joining Konoha. Daiki shrugged, and honestly, he was getting a little annoyed. You plan to attack my village with the entire plan of wiping us out. The fact I haven't fucking went straight to your village and blown it out of existence right now is a blessing I'm giving. This is more mercy your village deserves as far as I'm concerned. Gaara nodded. Perfectly reasonable, he agreed. Personally, I don't care either way. I would rather stay in Konoha anyway than Suna. That actually surprised Daiki a bit. Really? Yes, I have found some peace, I suppose you could say, since I came to this village and met you, and if this Akatsuki group will hunt me for my bijou, then logically, being allied with one as strong as you, and another Jinchuriki is the best for me, Gaara replied, and looked to his sister. Temari, do not be so stubborn. Suna are the losers, and the losers have no right to whine unfairness to the victory, especially not when the loser picked the fight. But Temari feebly protested, before sighing in defeated, shoulders slumping, will your daimyo even allow you to do this? Daiki blinked, and stared at her as if she were an idiot. What the hell does that useless figurehead's opinion matter? He burst out laughing. If he tries to tell me what I can and can't do, I'll just kill him and replace him. The only authority that fool has, is what Konoha allows him. Quite frankly, I've no idea why your father didn't just have that moron Wind Daimyo killed for his treason. Because that was what it was. The man betrayed his own land. If the Fire Daimyo hired people from outside the land of fire, Daiki would march straight up to the capital and cut his head off in front of the entire population in a public execution. Which reminds me, I'll need to get rid of the Wind Daimyo. Since the land of wind will just be part of the land of fire, there's no need for another daimyo, one useless fop is enough. Daiki thought. How strong do you have to be to actually think like that? Temari couldn't help but ask. As strong as me. Daiki replied. I see, Gaara hummed, yes that makes sense, and with you absorbing Suna into Konoha, and transforming the land. You will have 2 countries out of 5 under your control, of massive prosperous lands, going by your own admittance. Forming a power block where you control more than 1/3 of the entire elemental nations. More than half actually, Daiki grinned at him, Mist has already allied with us in full. In fact, I'm engaged to the Mizukage. And she'll follow my lead. And it won't be long, before the Mist becomes the Leaf as well. It would be a little trickier than the Land of Wind because of the ocean between them. But, he now owned the Land of Whirlpools as the Hokage. He ruled it now, just as he ruled the Land of Fire. And once he gained control of the seals within the ocean creating the massive whirlpools around the massive island, he could direct them differently. And with enough chakra and the wood style, bridging the lands would be possible, and if not, I'll just need to build enough chakra up over a year or 2 and use it to pull the entirety of the Land of Water closer with Kagetsushin, he thought. It should be well within his means, once he got everything he wanted to empower Isabu with. Wait, you're engaged? Temari reared back, then, what was with all the flirting? Not just with me, but all the other girls? What about it? Daiki shrugged, I also have a concubine, he helpfully informed her. Granted, that was more of a very recent thing, but still. Another thing that would possibly be a problem with 1010, he still had no idea how he was going to get around that. But, in the end, they were just testing if they were compatible. If she didn't want to be part of that kind of relationship, that was fine. Not to mention there was Sakura and Fu. Though honestly, he didn't think Fu would mind that much, if at all. What, she uttered blankly. Polygamy, while a bit rarer these days, isn't exactly unheard of, Daiki shrugged, and I have a bloodline to pass on. Quite a few actually. Man, were his future kids so lucky to have him as a father. Then, would it not make sense to marry Temari as well? Gaara took that moment to drop a very surprising suggestion. Gaara! Temari spluttered, face flushing red. Well now, actually, he hadn't thought of that, that's actually not a bad idea, Daiki clicked his fingers and looked to Temari, you're basically as close as it gets to a princess and Suna. And a marriage alliance on paper is always great for soothing egos. And it'll make your own people more accepting when they see their own former Kazekage's daughter willing to be romantically involved with me. Plus, this was the perfect way to put the words he spouted to Raza to reality. His punishment for his betrayal of Konoha had only just begun. Gaara stared out over the edge of the roof of the hotel, eyes on the massive looming Hokage monument after Daiki left. Arms crossed, his mind replayed everything the other boy had said to him, to them both. And more specifically, the words the boy had left hanging in the air before parting with them. And I'll leave you with this too. My eyes are special. And that automatic sand defense is not an ability of Shikaku. With these eyes, I can see the soul of your mother clinging to you. She worried for you so much, she lingered on even after death, protecting you. His eyes felt suspiciously hot and prickly. He had to keep blinking to stop it from overwhelming his vision. He had been wrong. He remembered Daiki's words to him as well, when he was stalking Rock Lee, the desire for his blood pumping a manic beat in his head. Shikaku isn't your mother. Your mother is dead. She died bringing you into this world, so don't disrespect her like that. Those words now took on an all-new meaning. For all his life, he'd struggled and loathed the world. Nobody had loved him, so he would love only himself. Only, that was not true. It was completely wrong. He had been so loved by his mother even as he killed her coming into this world, that she refused the call of death itself to watch over him? To protect him? Something warm burned in his chest and left him breathless. She did not even know me. All she knew was she was dying as I was coming out of her, and yet she loved me so much? How was it possible for her to already love him so much? And, what did he do with that love? Used it as a sword. Be proud of who and what you are. Wear like armor and it can never be used to hurt you. Don't brandish it like a sword. Once more, Daiki's words rang through his ears. His words to him then were more telling now he realized. He had known that he was abusing the love he'd always craved. How foolish I was. Gaara thought bleakly. Something had changed along the way since he met Daiki that day. Something in him had shifted. And Shikaku had been suspiciously quiet. Perhaps because of Daiki's offer to fully seal it away where it could not influence him at all? As it turned out, there was never anything wrong with him at all. He had never needed to seek validation for his existence. Just as Daiki had told him, my existence was validated the very moment I was born. His lips twitched, and he found himself smiling, and a sense of joy and happiness, of contentment he'd never remembered close to feeling in his life, filled him to the brim. Gaara? The voice of his sister sounded concerned, made him look over his shoulder at her, seeing a worried frown on her face. Yes, he asked, taking in her worried face. Mother's other child, just like Kankuro. And how had he treated them? He had been a fool. It was never their fault, he had just taken it out on them childishly. It was all father. No, Raza's fault. Are you okay? Temari said, reaching out hesitantly, before placing a hand on his shoulder that sent a spike of warmth through him. You're crying. He was? Reaching up, he brushed a hand over his cheek and his finger came back wet. And it was then he realized she was correct. He was indeed crying. It was not an unfamiliar sensation. He had cried many times when he was younger. Out of sadness and loneliness and pure unrestrained rage. But this was different. Felt different. It did not feel as heavy as it had then. In fact, he felt lighter. Happier, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulder. I am fine, Temari, thank you though, he smiled at her, and he was surprised himself at how easy it was. I am simply happy? I suppose you could say. All right, she smiled back, and didn't broach the subject. Very tactful of her, and mature, he noticed. Something he would not have noticed about his older sister before. That guy is like a natural disaster, isn't he? A hurricane even. He just blows right in, upends everything chaotically, gives you no chance to counter and shoots off somewhere else while you're reeling from it. That was a good analogy for Daiki. He was very much larger than life. It was like he lived at a different level. Was that simply something innate to him, or was it a trait of being a truly perfect Jinchuriki and having ascended beyond mere human limitations? He was like the hero of an epic. Or was it simply because he had taken on so much, gained so much? It would be impossible to know without asking the boy. He wanted to know more about his fellow Jinchuriki. So different from him and others like that Naruto fellow. And yet, so happy. Always smiling, having a good time. Could I become like him? Gaara wondered. To live so grandly, so brightly. To enjoy life so much. That was the kind of existence his mother would want for him, right? To live enjoying his life to the fullest just like Daiki, to be so innately proud and happy in who he was. It was then Gaara realized, he was full of admiration for the other boy, and yet jealous at the same time. Yes, that is a good analogy for Daiki. Gaara eventually responded. All the while, his mind wondered. How did he become like Daiki? It was more than just personality, it was his strength as well, his ambition, everything. If he wanted to be like him, he had to obtain similar aspects. Without your sand, the average genin could kick your ass around. Daiki's words floated through his ears again, his admonishment of his weakness. They were not wrong. He had never had to increase his overall abilities, because none had ever been able to hurt him before. It was only now, he realized, how weak that made him. It was not his strength combined with that of his bijou like Daiki was so proud of in himself as a perfect Jinchuriki. It was him, relying on the power of his bijou like a leech, and now that he knew of it, hiding behind his mother's protection. He did not like what that said about him. The first act to become like him is to better myself, Gaara thought. What is it I overheard saying all the time about training? The grind? Yes, that is it. I must follow the same path, of the grind. And perhaps truly understand what it meant to become a Jinchuriki and not a demon. Would it be possible for him to work together with Shikaku? He called me the weakest. Shikaku's voice hissed suddenly from deep within him, before falling silent. Shikaku was different too. Ever since Daiki threatened to seal Shikaku away, and referred to it as the weakest bijou, it had spoke less, tried to influence him less. Even the tone of voice had changed. Before, it had been full of cackles and a demented cooing as it pretended to be his mother. In the end, he supposed that had just been a farce Shikaku played upon to manipulate him. Do you really think I should marry him? Temari asked suddenly. He returned his attention to Temari. Yes, Gaara replied easily. As I said before, I do not personally care what happens to Suna. But you do. And he was not lying in anything he said. That's the problem, I know, Temari grimaced, but he was such an arrogant dick about it, and didn't even care that he killed hundreds of our people. He was angry, Gaara said simply, he did not show it. But the sheer fact that we targeted his village, which I remind you he takes a lot of pride in and cares for deeply as shown by the broadcast of his battle with Orochimaru, is enough to tell us that. As of now, we are not affiliated with him, and thus not part of what he cares for. He looked her dead in the eye, and decided to be blunt with her. Suna will fall, and it is all Raza and the past Kazekage's foolish decision that have led to such a thing happening, he told her. You can only make the best out of the situation Suna itself caused for itself. Besides, it is not like you dislike him at all. You very much were quite angry, I noticed, when other girls talked to him. Temari's cheeks burned and she looked away. I mean, that's different. He's really good looking, and strong and so confident it's unreal. It's not a good basis for marriage, she replied, but well, you're not wrong in the end either. I just don't want to admit our village is so weak, and that our father was such a fool. He was a fool though. Or as Daiki had claimed, a complete clown. Indeed, why did he not kill Wind Daimyo? Gaara wondered. It seemed like such a simple solution. The man sat upon a massive fortune, and was but a leech. He did nothing for the Land of Wind but collect taxes and live a lavish life. Suna itself, alongside all the official settlements of the Land of Wind, paid a tax tribute to the Wind Daimyo. And to top that off, he barely even lived within the Land of Wind. His residence, and the capital of the Land of Wind, was a small city-state at the very edge of the Land of Wind, bordering the Land of Rivers. It was the only part of the Land of Wind with lush grass land and great rivers of water, coming in from the Land of Rivers. The greatest oasis even in all of the Land of Wind. He should have been done away with, his fortune and land claimed. Gaara thought. On top of that, going for more, they could have negotiated with Konoha for both of them to annex part of the Land of Rivers, and bind their alliance deeper. Konoha had been reeling with the Kyuubi attack, had it not? Then marriage was the true go-to for that. Father wanted rid of Pakura of the Scorch style because she could have replaced him. He should have created a marriage alliance with Konoha for concessions. Konoha would get the Scorch style bloodline and an S-class Kunoichi recovering some of their strength, and we would get much more funds and such to escape the poverty of our village. And it would have made our alliance look far more ironclad to outsiders, a true unified front. If it is any consolation, sister, Daiki seems to be the type that jealously guards what he believes is his, doggedly and murderously so. Gaara tried to comfort his sister. We will no longer be Suna, we will be Konoha. And that means, our people also fall under that protection he offers. This may actually be the best thing for our people since the inception of our village. Quite frankly, Gaara didn't see the appeal of being a native of Suna. In the last few weeks, he'd found peace in Konoha, and changed so drastically he could barely recognize himself. And his sister, once she got over her foolish pride in Suna that was completely misplaced and understood how much they would have, he bet she would wonder why she dragged her feet so foolishly. You know, it kind of does. Temari sighed and looked up. His strength is ridiculous, isn't it? And his plans he's so confident in, so sure of. It's like standing in front of the sun. So bright and powerful, and makes others look so small. Yes, that did sound right. Alright, I'll marry him, Temari decided, and he noticed she was looking anywhere but at him, her face turned away so he couldn't see her expression. But he could still make out the flush on her cheek from this angle, for the good of our people. Chapter 79. After leaving behind Gaara and Temari with his offer, Daiki found himself having to bite the bullet. And go to a goddamn meeting of all things. With all the upper tier echelon of the village. It was a wide room, with him sitting atop a platform on a large plush chair overseeing a massive circular-shaped table with each of the clan heads of the village situated around it, alongside seating positions for the Jonin commander, the Umbu commander, the head of research and development, the head of the barrier corps, the head of financing and the commander-in-chief of the foreign relations. Commander-in-chief of the foreign relations being a fancy name for the man in charge of overseeing their shinobi who were undercover in other nations. Quite a few of them were empty though, what with Shikaku Nara the head of the Nara clan being the Jonin commander, and Inoichi Yamanaka being the head of the barrier corps. He sat upon a large, plush throne-like armchair, while at his sides on similar yet smaller chairs, were the Hokage advisors, alongside old man Hiruzen himself and Danzo. Danzo was supposed to be on house arrest, but Daiki lifted it for now. Alright, let's get this shit moving. Daiki slouched in his chair, looking down over the assembled bigwigs. I've got shit to do, you know. He really wasn't a fan of having to sit in on meetings like this. This was the bad part of accepting being Hokage. That's not an appropriate attitude for the Hokage. Koharu chided him. Sure it is, I'm the Hokage, what I says goes. Daiki waved her off, but you know what I mean. This is little more than a meet and greet, and for you guys to take stock of me. Shikaku yawned from where he was slouched over the desk at his part of the table. Well, you ain't wrong I suppose, the Nara head replied. This is a little different than usual though. Usually, we'd have time to meet and talk to you and learn more about you before you got the hat. Instead we're having to rush it now because you were crowned on a live broadcast. Well, Daiki supposed that made sense. Quite, Hayashi nodded. Not only is this unprecedented because of your age, but you have been thrust into the position when usually you'd be eased into it, and we would learn of what you hope to accomplish as Hokage in that grace period. I'm sure it must be a bit overwhelming for you. Inoichi gave him a small smile. As far as we are aware now, as Sandame-sama explained to us, while you knew you would be Hokage, it was not something expected for a few more years yet. It's not actually, Daiki smirked. It just means I'll be putting my plans as Hokage into action far earlier. Which is actually far more convenient for me. I confess to curiosity on my part, Daiki-kun, Hiruzen spoke up, smiling. You've been very tight-lipped on your plans. Because I hadn't thought I'd be able to put them into practice so quickly, Daiki shrugged, and it's a big list. Well, this won't be fun, so Minazuka groaned. We're gonna be here forever. I hate these meetings. You should send your daughter in your place next time. Daiki helpfully told her. Maybe I should, some snorted, though, considering you're a well-known playboy Hokage-sama, maybe I shouldn't. Yes, about that, should we quench such rumors? Hayashi frowned. We can't have the name of our Hokage being slandered so. Don't bother, Daiki waved him off. When you try and squash gossip like that, you just make it look like there's something to hide, and makes you look weak. Besides, it's not wrong. He ran a hand through his hair and leaned forward in his chair. In fact, that's a good point to start with, Daiki decided. I'm engaged to the Mizukage. And, before coming here, I met the children of the Kazekage and offered the same to his daughter Temari. She will accept no doubt, and going forward Suna will no longer exist in title, instead, they will be part of Konoha. And the Land of Wind will belong to us. Silence. One could hear a pin drop easily from the sheer lack of noise that came about from his statement. Old man Hiruzen's pipe fell from his mouth, and he saw Danzo straighten up somehow even more in his chair, while the old biddy Koharu gave him a dead stare. That's not a good idea. Shikaku was the one to break the silence while everyone goggled at him. Putting aside the fact we don't have the manpower, there is no benefit in the long run for us. In fact, that is more work for us. There is nothing to be gained from the Land of Wind, and beyond that, the Land of Rivers is between us and them in the first place. He sidestepped the part about him being engaged to Mei, huh? Well, that in of itself spoke for itself and the fact that they were allied with Miss now. And no doubt, the old man had probably put it around by now that they were officially allied. Yes, which is why we'll be annexing the Land of Rivers. Daiki leaned back, crossing his arms behind his head and smirking widely. we'll be absorbing both it and the Land of Wind into our own territory. It will all become part of the Land of Fire. Are you insane? Hamura spluttered, putting aside the fact again, we do not have anywhere close to the manpower to make use of such vast quantities of land. To do so would put near half the continent under our control and would invite war. Manpower isn't an issue, Daiki waved him off, I'll deal with that in time. The Land of Wind being a crappy desert? I'll deal with that too. It's well within my capabilities to change the climate of that land. And war? So what? He took that time to stand and made sure not to walk silently. His steps echoed as he walked around the table, meeting each and every single one of their eyes. We are Konoha, he growled, and for far too long, we've been looked down on by those pathetic greedy stonehumpers from IWA and those rapist-clawing monkeys from the cloud. He came to a stop at the front of the table and slammed his fist down atop it, the thump echoing loudly. This isn't the Konoha just after the Third War, nor is it the Konoha straight after the Kyuubi attack when we were at our weakest. Daiki declared, no, Konoha today is in the strongest position it's ever been. Jiraiya and Tsunade are back in the village. Old man Sandaime and Danzo are right there. Kakashi will soon step into the rank of S-rank shinobi, and Guy is already a powerful S-class shinobi once he uses the 7th gate. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha are already powerful enough to contend with elite jonin. Give them a year, and they will be S-class shinobi themselves. The Mist and the Mizukage are our allies. Gaara of the Sand will be one us and will be an S-class shinobi in the near future. He spread his arms wide, and at the top of it all, I'm the Hokage and there isn't a single person in the elemental nations living today that could beat me in a fight, Daiki shouted, his voice thundering through the meeting room. Even if the Reikage brought Killer Bee and Yuji Oni to back him up and faced me together, I'd still win. And who does that leave? IWA? What are they gonna do? Send their garden gnome Tsukikage at me? They can't send their Jinchuriki, they've left their villages. He pointed at Hayashi. Aren't you still angry, he demanded, after what happened to your brother? After we had to shamefully bow our heads for the good of our people and sell out one of our own, after those monkeys tried to steal your daughter so they could rape her. Hayashi reared back as if he had slapped him, eyes wide, mouth dropped low. I. He was rendered absolutely speechless. Of course you're still angry over it, who wouldn't be? What father wouldn't lie awake at night and think of what would have happened if they weren't fast enough? Niji definitely hasn't forgotten what happened to his father. Daiki spoke before he could find his voice. That wasn't the first time they tried that. They tried to steal the fucking previous Kyuubi Jinchuriki from us and turn her into a breeding bitch as well. Peace is not an option with them. They will try again the second they sense weakness. And I say fuck that. We will not be reactive, we will be proactive. What about our people? Choza Akimichi demanded, to invite war, is to welcome the death of our people. There can be no war without death. There will be none. Daiki shouted him down, there won't be a war. There can't be a war when the enemy doesn't exist now, can there? And that is what will happen. If they decide to oppose us, I will wipe them out personally. This is madness. Koharu wrung her hands together. No, this is Konoha. Daiki turned to her and his smirk returned, whiter than ever before, and I will make Konoha the greatest of all. He held his hand up before anyone could say anything else, cutting them off and walked by to his seat. There will be no debate, you do what I say, and that is all. Daiki ordered them. Hiruzen sighed, I expected you to do something like this to be honest, but not quite so soon. He shook his head, very well Daiki no Hokage-sama. How should we proceed then? Demands of concessions, Daiki said simply, for a start, they are to return to us the body of Hisashi Hyuga so he can be buried with his family. Do not name him as Hayashi, that lie will die. We will not pretend as if we did anything wrong, because they are the only wrong ones. Hayashi sat up straight, Hokage-sama. Daiki nodded to him, and the man visibly swallowed, before smiling back and nodding in return. Then Daiki turned his attention back to Hiruzen. They are to pay us 50 million ryo in reparations, and they are to siphon a part of the Nibi's chakra. The amount does not matter. And they are to give it to us. A portion of the Nibi's chakra? Shikaku narrowed his eyes, why? A small portion of its chakra gives no benefits. It's not supposed to, Daiki shrugged and lied casually, it's a threat. I've already shown how easily I can handle the chakra of the Hachibi. This is to compound on it. And it is to tell them that if they do not concede to our demands, I will take the Nibi and the Hachibi from them. He clicked his fingers and pointed at the commander-in-chief of the foreign relations. While we're on the topic, Rashi the Yanbi Jinchuriki and Han the Gobi Jinchuriki have both left IWA. Reach out to them, tell them they are welcome in Konoha, and they can live peacefully and protected with no expectations of fighting if they do not want to, Daiki ordered, before flicking his wrist, an oddly tri-bladed kunai appearing in his palm and flicked it. It landed with a thud stabbing into the desk in front of him, and there was a collective gasp around the room. Give that to whomever you send and tell them to throw it if they turn violent or refuse. I'll deal with my Jinchuriki brethren personally if needed. This is... The head of foreign relations swallowed heavily as he lifted the kunai, holding it almost reverently. You can use the flying thunder god Hokage-sama? That kunai should tell you all you need to know. Daiki said, and let it at that. To be honest, he hadn't mastered the technique yet, but he was close. And with 300 more extra clones working on his training now, for a total of 700. It would be done soon. That would leave only the Rokubi. And he knew personally where he was. He was in fact, in the land of fire. Daiki would personally go to see him soon. And whether he came back to Konoha with him or not, he'd still take part of the Rokubi's chakra in return for leaving him be. And with that, he would have obtained portions of all 9 Biju's chakra. And he would just need to build up large enough portions of each over time. This is unprecedented, Hamura commented, aghast. You cannot poach the Biju. Kumo tried it first. I'm just doing it better, Daiki shrugged uncaringly. Besides, I'm not poaching the Biju. This system of the Biju being used as wind-up weapons should never have occurred in the first. That was Hashirama Senju's biggest mistake. They were not his to give out like party favors, they are living beings. When I am done, there will be no more Jinchuriki unless a Biju and a human mutually agree to it. Hamura jerked to his feet. You cannot insult Shodai-sama like that. You could not even begin to understand his greatness. You, a whelp, believe you know better than the god of shinobi, he spat, and the Jinchuriki are pivotal to dash. He never finished as Daiki's chakra flared explosively around him, a wave of green that launched the man off of his feet, kicking up a gale force slammed the massive table up into the ceiling and shattered it to pieces. Paperwork and chairs went flying, and the assembled clan heads and even the Umbu commander dropped to their knees under the wave of pressure. The only ones who remained seated at all were Danzo and Hiruzen. I'll insult who I goddamn want. Do not ever think to talk to me about Jinchuriki and Biju as if you know better than me, the greatest Jinchuriki to ever exist. Daiki ignored everyone else and glared at him. Stop questioning my orders. This is not a democracy. I am the goddamn Hokage, and stop thinking my age means you can talk back to me. Stop thinking, because the old man let you talk back to him because of your long friendship, that you can question my decisions. You are not my friend, you do not have authority unless I grant you it. You are my subordinate, and that is all, understood? Such potent chakra. Hamura looked up at him in disbelief, before quickly, yes, Hokage-sama, I apologize for my rudeness. You're forgiven. Daiki huffed and stood up, taking in the destruction he caused, the wooden shards of table and splintered chairs. Well, guess we won't be using those anymore. You think? Sum snorted drilly as she stood up, wiping a trail of sweat from her brow. Holy shit, I mean Hokage-sama. What insanely potent and dense chakra. You gotta be careful with that. If there are any genin or civilians in here, you might have pasted them. Good thing you're all jonin then, eh? Daiki smirked. Now then, moving along from this crap. There's more I want to address. The teaching at the academy, and of course my own position as a teacher. He pointed at Hayashi. I will be promoting Hanabi to genin and taking her as my official student, he told him bluntly, before looking at the Kurama clan head. Alongside Hanabi Hyuga, Yakumo Kurama will join a team under my command as student of mine as well. The Kurama clan head blinked olishly at him as he rose on shaky legs. But Hokage-sama, what about the Ito? It's a non-entity, don't worry about it, I've already devised a way to deal with it, Daiki assured him, and as far as a third student goes, I've not picked one out yet. With that said, he sat back down on his chair. As far as the academy, let's talk chakra control first, specifically the tree climbing exercise and the water walking exercise. I want all students by time they've reached their last year in the academy to. Daiki. Curled up in his bed, arms around a large, lush, and soft pillow, Sasuke's face was set in a deep frown. Contemplative, bewildered, annoyed, satisfied, curious. He couldn't at all decide how to feel. So much had happened since he turned up for the final round of the Chunin exams yesterday. From the attempt at an invasion from Orochimaru, to Daiki destroying him in response and all of his allies, and all of his forces. To Daiki being crowned as Hokage for all to see. And perhaps, the most perplexing of them all. He rolled over, looking at the mirror on the far side of his bedroom and channeled chakra into his eyes. Onyx swirled into red, and then 3 spinning tomo converged and spiraled, forming a lotus pattern. The Manjikyu Sharingan. Daiki had awakened it in him. Knew exactly how to do so, somehow. But, that made no sense, you have to kill your best friend to awaken the Manjikyu, that's what Itachi said. Sasuke thought. So was that a lie all along? He was not sure whether to be supremely grateful for Daiki somehow managing to awaken these eyes for him, or annoyed at him. On the one side, he was stronger, far stronger than he was yesterday. The awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan had enhanced his physical abilities. It would take months of further training to advance to the point he was now. And on top of that, he could feel them. Techniques, jutsu, whatever. 2 of them. The names and how to use them whispered in his mind. Amaterasu. Blaze style. He had no idea what they were, he just knew they were powerful. Usually, he would have doggedly pursued using them, trying them out. But, after everything that happened yesterday, he was just so tired. Even now, despite having rested all day, and never even having to fight yesterday at all, he still felt mentally exhausted. His mind kept going back to everything Daiki revealed to him yesterday. The Akatsuki, the annihilation of not only his clan, but the Senju and the Uzumaki. The Sage of 6 Paths, the Jubi. Is that what Itachi is truly after? He couldn't help but wonder what that evil man truly desired. Even worse now, not only was Naruto the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, but it had been revealed to all that Daiki was the Jinchuriki of the Sanbai. His brother would be targeting his teammate and his best friend. His best friend, and his god brother? Sasuke's face scrunched up. It was so weird to realize just how connected he and Naruto actually were. He didn't even realize he'd had a godmother. But then if Naruto's mother was his mother's best friend, and she was murdered by a member of their own clan, he could understand. He did not even know what kind of things he'd think if one day Itachi just appeared out of nowhere on what was to be a happy day, and killed Daiki. But his chest ached, both at the thought, and at what his mother must have lost too. My family has suffered too much. He blinked away angry tears that dared to form. He let the chakra fade from his eyes, before rolling back over and staring up at the ceiling with a sigh. I should get up, he thought. It was Daiki's coronation today. In an hour and a half, he would officially be sworn in as the Hokage in front of the entire village. He should go support him. But it'd be annoying. Daiki was going to be loud and boastful for sure. He had the biggest stage to strut like a peacock on. And the village as a whole had borne a massive infatuation with him. He should know the annoyances were partying all night long. Still partying even. It was times like this he cursed himself for moving out of the Uchiha district to this penthouse apartment in the middle of the village. And given how much Daiki was going to play it up, he'd just incite even further celebrations. If nothing else, the fool was oddly charismatic. Which was a pain, because there was going to be even more noise. Nope. Sasuke decided. He was not going. In fact, right now he was cursing himself for never learning the sealing arts. He knew from Daiki himself that using them to block sound was well within capabilities of anyone even slightly trained in the art. Note to self, learn some seals, make silencing seal to give myself peace and quiet from loud fools, he decided. He was broken from his thoughts, as he heard a knock on his door. That better not be some girl again, he groaned. He rolled out of his bed, grabbing his clothing from the top of the drawers beside his bed, and pulled them on as he made his way to the door. If it was another annoying girl, he wasn't going to bother letting them see him shirtless again. For whatever reason, it made them act like mad rabid dogs. Could they not take a hint? At least Sakura has given up and focusing on Daiki now, thank whatever gods are listening. Now if only Yamanaka would join her. He thought as he made it to his door, before unlocking it and pulling it open. And found himself looking at a brown-haired Umbu, yes? Sasuke asked with a sigh. He already knew this was going to be bothersome. Hokage-sama desires your presence, the Umbu replied. Of course he did. What one? He asked, rhetorically. There was only one that would send an Umbu agent to pick him up. And it was not the much less annoying older one. Godema-sama. The Umbu stated. Of course it is. Sasuke sighed in defeat. Well, he supposed he could at least chew him out now for using him as a distraction for Orochimaru. It didn't really bother him, mind you, it was incredibly smart even. But it was Daiki, so he would do so regardless. After locking his door, he let the Umbu direct him to where he was supposed to go. And surprise surprise, it was the Hokage Tower. Not. Along the way, he noticed the streets were full to the brim with people, as if a massive festival was in session. And already a huge swathe of people were meandering about the huge open square outside the Hokage Tower. What was truly surprising, however, was when he found Naruto impatiently waiting outside the Hokage's office, alongside another Umbu agent. Sasuke, so you got called too. Naruto pointed at him as he approached. He resisted the urge to groan again. There was no Kakashi, nor Sakura. Which meant just him and Naruto, and Daiki. Which meant, this would no doubt something relating to the Akatsuki or Bijou. What bombshells was Daiki going to drop on him today and turn his world upside now? He almost about turned and left. He was already reeling from the crap he learned yesterday. He settled on replying with. There, that should do it. Bastard. Naruto huffed and rolled his eyes. But, there was little heat to it. Even the blonde moron was a little burnt out, it seemed. Well, he couldn't blame him. Daiki just accomplished Naruto's dream after all. That was bound to hurt at least a little. The two Umbu nodded to each other, before the one beside Naruto knocked on the Hokage's office door. A moment later, Daiki's voice echoed through the door, send them in, and then make sure nobody bothers us. Yes, Hokage-sama, both Umbu snapped to attention, before one opened the door and gestured for he and Naruto to enter. As soon as they did, the door was pulled shut behind them, and Sasuke found himself looking at Daiki reclining back in the Hokage's chair, the Hokage hat atop his head. His feet were kipped up on the desk, and both of his hands were crossed behind his head as he relaxed like he owned the place. Which he technically did now, Sasuke supposed. Sup, ladies? Daiki gave them a lazy grin. Is that really how you're going to greet us, after the crap you pulled yesterday? Sasuke scoffed, rolling his eyes. Shouldn't you call me Hokage-sama? Daiki's grin grew. I never called the old man that, I ain't calling you a Daiki, Naruto scoffed himself, screw you. Daiki just snorted at the disrespect, is that an offer, he shot back, cause if you plan on making your sexy jutsu permanent and becoming Naruto instead, I'll think about it. No. Naruto reared back, scrunching his face up in annoyance. What the hell is with you and my sexy jutsu, you weirdo? I'm not into dudes. I'm just kidding, Daiki laughed, waving him off, gorgeous as Naruto is, knowing it's still you under there makes it a complete turn off. You're not dating material. Naruto's eyebrows twitched, says you. I'm totally dating material, and if I did I'd be the best girlfriend there ever was. Believe it. Sasuke palmed his face, Naruto, you moron. He just dragged you into his pace, again. Naruto blinked, before realizing what he said and his face turned bright red. Daiki, you're the freaking worst, you know that, he huffed, and just gave up. Just forget I ever said anything. Even Naruto, it seemed, wasn't stubborn enough to try and beat Daiki at his own game. Sasuke didn't blame him, that was impossible. Daiki was the worst. Why was Daiki his best friend? Fine, I was just lighting things up a bit. Daiki shrugged and took his feet off of the table, before standing up. He walked around the desk to lean on the front of it, arms crossed, and his face turned serious. This isn't exactly gonna be a light-hearted little chit-chat after all. Of course it wasn't. It never was when Daiki was serious. He actively preferred goofy, boastful braggart Daiki, because at least it meant nothing was wrong. What do you mean? Naruto tilted his head. Aren't you just gonna brag about how awesome you are and that you're Hokage now and rub it in? Also, fuck you by the way. I can't believe you're Hokage. It was a testament to how serious whatever he was going to bring up was, that Daiki didn't pounce on the other opportunity Naruto just left him. If I was going to brag about it and rub it in, I'd have come found you, not had you brought to my office. Daiki told him in return. And Sasuke actually found himself blinking at his choice of words. My office. Somehow, that made Daiki being Hokage more real than anything else. Daiki, with an office. Of all the things that made it hit home, it was that. It just did not fit. Oh, alright, Naruto shrugged, before grinning. So what is it then? You promoting us? Sasuke rolled his eyes. Idiot, Daiki wouldn't turn so serious and call us here alone like this just for something like that. And we didn't even get to fight in the third round, ye dash. Well, yes actually. Daiki replied. Sasuke's eye twitched. I loathe you, Daiki. Hell yeah. Naruto pumped his fist in the air. Might not be Hokage yet, but Shunin, I'll take it, baby. That's not actually the reason I called you, mind you, but I am planning on promoting you both. Daiki shrugged. You're both far too strong, and filled with too much potential for me to keep you as genin. Naruto, you're not going to be allowed to lead any teams for the time being though. You're going to have to go through some simulated training in leading teams, before I decide you're mature enough to lead genin. Naruto's face scrunched in affront. What the hell? That's bullshit. Or you can stay a genin. Daiki shrugged and Naruto clammed up. You're skilled and strong, and your on-the-fly strategy in battle is amazing. You're too headstrong though. You'd rather stay and fight any enemy than run if the situation called for it. And that's fine when it's just you, but when you're leading a team and you're responsible for other people's lives, that just can't happen, Naruto. You need to learn how to be more pragmatic, before you're allowed to lead a team. TCH. Naruto clicked his tongue, and looked away, relenting. Fine, still bullshit though. Not mature enough to lead a team, but mature enough for you to want to bang me if I was a chick. If your brain reflected the size of your tits as Naruto, I'd give you this hat right now. Daiki snorted, reaching up and flicking the hat atop his head. Sasuke shook his head as Naruto grumbled more. He should know by now, his perverted jutsu just made Daiki stronger, not weaker. And it was impossible to beat him with it, because he was simply too shameless. Shunin, huh, he thought. Well, that was good, he supposed, but he honestly didn't care much for his rank. Enough with the jokes and banter, why did you really call us here? Sasuke decided enough was enough. If he just wanted to do this silly crap, he was going back home and crawling back into his bed. He had ruminating to do. Fine, Daiki waved him off. There's a lot to talk about, in regards to both of you actually. What about us? Naruto raised a brow. I don't get it. If it was just, it'd probably be about the Kyuubi and Sanbai, right? But Sasuke's here too. That's why I thought it was about being promoted. That's stupid, Naruto. If it was about promotions we wouldn't be the only ones here. Sasuke shook his head. You weren't wrong in your first thought. This is definitely about the bijou. Right on the money. There's quite a few I'll be promoting actually, though only a few of you will be cleared to lead teams to start with, Daiki replied, before turning his attention fully to Naruto. There's a few things you've always wanted to know, right? Naruto stiffened. Do you know? He asked softly, and he went from grumbling to almost desperate in a moment. Your parents and why you were chosen as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Daiki said, standing up from the desk and walking over to place a hand almost comfortingly on Naruto's shoulder. The old man, and Jiraiya, that useless pervert, no, but don't think you're ready. But this bullshit leaving you wondering has gone on far too long, and you deserve to know, and deserve a whole lot more than just that. Your mother's name is Kushina Uzumaki, the last Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. And your father's name is Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Naruto World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Reborn in Highschool DxD is a Lucifuge, and What If a Venerated Soul Reincarnated in Danmachi World will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if reincarnated in Bleach as Toshiro Hitsugaya? What if hosting Q&A in One Piece World? Please vote in the poll and let me know which 2 stories you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.